Hey guys, how's it going? How's it going? Welcome to our second TechPod event. This is pretty exciting stuff. We're off to a pretty good start so far, and as you guys know, will be our second product management event too. And we know like how much everybody loves PM, and so we're just trying to like push out as many PM events as we can for you guys. Yes, hello. Yes, of course. And also like there's a huge team behind TechPod that like does all of this, and so definitely like thank the whole team for being able to put this together. And the Zoom link is not working. Is it on YouTube only? Yes, it is only on YouTube. Zoom links, we try to like stay away from Zoom just because like we think YouTube is easier for people to access. Yes, we are very excited for Parth and Christina. Cool. We're just gonna wait about 3 more minutes for people to roll on in. There's quite a few of you guys here today. Let's see. But yeah, how's everybody's New Year's going? Like, are New Year's resolutions still a thing? Do people do that in 2021? If you guys have like a New Year's resolution, put it down in the comments because I want to see them. Is it landing an internship, getting a job, working out, trying to wake up like at 8 a.m., fixing my sleep schedule? Vicky, your TikTok to mess with Joseph was hilarious. Thank you. I really tried on that one. Going great. Currently reading Swipe to Unlock. That's awesome. Reading more books. Eating more kale. I like that. That's pretty unique. Learning JavaScript. Learning more about PM. More coffee chats. Building my startup. 10 minutes of meditation every day. More coffee chats. Yes. Joseph is the king of coffee chats, if you guys didn't know. So definitely reach out to him. Let's see. 2 books a month. And finding a mentor in tech. Bake bigger pastries. That's awesome. What kind of pastries do you bake? Get back into reading to get over that goldfish attention span. I totally feel you. I feel like ever since I started using more technology, I get distracted really easily. And so it's hard for me to like focus on one thing for more than like 5 minutes at a time. Oh, we have another baker in here. Starting up my baking business. Maybe you guys can link up. You guys can bake really big pastries and start a baking business. Cool. I think we're about to hit the 5-minute mark. So I'm just going to go ahead and give some very quick intros to our event today. But yes, today we have our how to actually break into PM without a CS major event. And as you guys may know, we're featuring 2 very, very awesome panelists. Parth, who like co-authored Swipe to Unlock and is currently a product manager at Facebook, and Christina, who is an ex-product manager at Microsoft and currently a PM at Affirm. And we're doing this event alongside Product Alliance. And so shout out to Product Alliance for making this possible. But just as a quick background, both of them come from economics and business degrees. And so we're really, really excited today to bring them on to TechPod to share with you guys how you guys can maybe do the same. And yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and bring them on.
Hello,
guys, welcome.
What's up, TechPod?
Lovely. Yeah, how are you guys? How's your New Year's been, and how's 2021 going so far for you guys?
Good. How are you?
Not
I'm
doing
looking
too
at all
bad.
these New Year's resolutions to read more books. That's also one of mine. And gaining weight. I'm looking at the comments right now.
Love it, love it. Yeah, there's a lot of people here joining us tonight, so really excited. I guess we can start off this event with quick introductions of you both. I think you guys both have like really interesting stories, and I tried to give like a brief intro at the beginning there, but I think you guys can tell a much better story than I can. And how about let's do like ladies first and like start off with Christina.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina G. I am currently a product manager at Affirm. Affirm is a fintech company. We just IPO'd yesterday, so I don't know we're really a startup, but we're a company, and you can think of us as like the buy now, pay later. So if you want to buy, for example, a Peloton bike, but you don't want to pay for it up front, we allow you to pay for it over time. So you pay for us either in 3 months and 6 months or 12 months. And the way we make money is, merchants will give us a cut for every customer that goes through us because we're the technology providing new customer acquisition. And then customers oftentimes pay us an interest rate. So that's a little bit how our business model works. Prior to that, I was a PM at Microsoft, but I switched in through marketing. I initially came on as a product marketing manager hire. And I was an intern as a product marketing manager where I met Parth during our internship days. So that's a little about me. And then I also, a bit about my school, because I assume a lot of you guys might be in school right now. I went to a really small business school called Babson College. We normally don't recruit at Microsoft, so I'm excited to come on here to really share some more tips about how to break into tech, especially even if you don't come from like a name brand school.
That was a really great intro. What about you, Parth?
Hey guys, my name is Parth. I'm a PM at Facebook. Like Christina mentioned, we used to work at Microsoft way back when. And like a question we always get is kind of like, how do you break into product from like a non-technical background? And like, so back when we were interns, both me and Christina really wanted to become product managers. And some of you guys might have heard of Swipe to Unlock. Like some of the motivation behind writing that book was essentially, I don't know about you guys, but I never really wanted to learn how to code. I wanted to be able to converse with engineers. I wanted to be able to build products. And I felt like there was like this big gap that prevented a lot of people from doing that, which was just that they didn't really speak the lingo. They didn't understand how these things kind of worked on the back end, like Google search or like collaborative filtering models, or it's just things like that. And so like, I think like, I don't think you really need to have a CS degree to be a great product manager. And so like, I think that's something that like that's kind of the reason why we wanted to do this talk today, of like kind of helping you guys better understand like what are those concrete steps you can take to break into product, regardless of what you studied in school. And so I studied applied economics and management, so essentially business. Never took a CS class at Cornell at all. And yeah, like I think there's like quite a few PMs like at Facebook. Like I think we're probably the only FANG company that doesn't require a technical background even for entry-level roles. What you'll find at a lot of companies is like as you get more senior in scope, they really loosen the requirements around technical expertise, just because you'll have like program managers or like TPMs that help you manage some of those pieces, and you'll be working more on the high-level strategy.
Awesome. That's great. That's great. I guess we can start off talking about, how do you even know that PM is the right career path for you? Because I feel like, a lot of people are looking into PM right now because it's gotten really popular over the past couple of months. And so I think maybe we could kind of tie this question to like, what kind of challenges like do you typically face as a non-CS background PM? And how do you know like, as someone from this background, pursuing product management would be a right career path for you?
Parth, you want to go first?
I'll let you go first.
How do I know that PM was right for me, and what are some of the problems? I think one of the questions you can ask yourself is, am I a very curious person? Do I like to solve problems? Because at the core of it, PMs are the problem solvers across all of it. And do I like interacting with people? I say those are the top three. I would ask yourself if you're interested in becoming a PM. As a PM, like I think there's oftentimes that saying, like a PM is like the mini CEO of a company, and it's very much true. And that's, you're putting your problem solving hat on, right? Like you're working with legal, you're working with marketing to figure out like, hey, what is the product vision that we're creating here? And how are we actually going to build that product, and working with engineering on that. And so there's a lot of problem solving involved, because it requires you to be really scrappy, and it requires you to be very curious to understand like, well, how should marketing work? How should legal work? Like, how do analytics work? And so you're really that glue. And to my last point about wanting to work with people, you're that glue that brings everybody together. You're that, mini CEO, so to say, and that you're helping to shape and bring the actual product and make it come to life. And so for me, I think that I knew that I wanted to be a PM as opposed to product marketing, is because I really craved that like tangible, like I want to get stuff done attitude, where you're saying to yourself like, okay, like, once we understand the problem, once we understand the people, how are we going to fix this? And how are we going to build a product? And I actually want to see it come to life. And so, while I was considering marketing and consulting, I felt like product was actually a really good fit because it has that tangible execution piece to it.
Yeah, and so for me, like I didn't even know that I wanted to be a PM until like the summer I interned with Christina. Actually, I was supposed to have like a marketing internship at Microsoft, but what they ended up giving me was like a product role where they were kind of like, okay, like mobile gaming is on pace to overtake like both PC and console gaming by like end of year. We don't have enough like devs to actually build like world-class mobile games, but we as Xbox need to have like a meaningful presence like on mobile. Like that's your project. Like figure out what that means, what we should do, all of that. And it's just like, wait, what? Because like when you're like, all my previous internships were extremely like well scoped out. Like you'll be doing this. Like here's who you turn to. This was like extremely open-ended. And so like I just started from first principles of like, okay, like what are we doing currently? What are other players doing? And what are like those core assets that we can leverage to have like a meaningful like presence on this like new frontier of gaming? And so like, I think like what you'll find in the world of tech is like at Facebook, for instance, everybody has like stickers on their laptop that say like data greater than opinions, because like you want data to back, especially like as you're like an intern or like a new grad, like people don't really trust your opinions. They want data to like kind of like drive decisions. And like I did a lot of data analysis, and like one key figure that I found was like essentially it wasn't that there was like a one-to-one mapping of console and PC gamers to mobile gamers, but the overlap between like the whales, the people who are spending like hundreds of dollars on mobile games, and those who are on our social network of Xbox Live, there was just an insane correlation. And so like that was like a really compelling value prop to like mobile game dev studios of, look, we have the audience that really matters, the people who like make the bulk of revenue, and Apple and Google are kind of dropping the ball in terms of social networks with like Google Play Games and Game Center on iOS. Like nobody really uses those. So if we could bring this like world-class social network for gaming to these other third-party games, we can do some really cool stuff. And so like, I think like that summer when I was given that project and I like got to come up with like that strategy and that proposal of like, let's bring Xbox Live to third-party like mobile games. That's when I kind of realized like the thing that really got me excited was like getting to shape products, not so much just the like marketing and branding side after the product exists. I've always been somebody who wants to like kind of put my own like unique touch on different products, and I always have like an opinion of like, oh, we should do this instead of this, and like that's kind of where I learned like the role of a PM kind of lets you shape those sort of things.
Yeah, that's great. So it sounds like from your answer, you got to be okay with doing a lot of problem solving and really like be the glue of your team, and then also just being okay with like navigating ambiguous situations and being willing to dig into the data and like really just getting your hands dirty. Cool. Now let's move on a little bit and let's talk about interviews and networking. How were you both able to land your first PM internships or role? And then do you have any strategies that you would like to share to the audience about how to stand out versus your like CS major counterparts or any other like tips or advice.
Christina, do you want to go first?
Okay, sure. Cool. How to first get your, I think this is the way you can think of this is like, how do I get my foot in the door and get an interview? How do I actually ace the interview process? And then like, once I have it, like, how do I know when to accept? And to address like the first two questions of like, how do I get my foot in the door? How do I network? I'm reading some of the comments here. Like, to clarify, Babson is a great school, but it's not a school that Microsoft recruited at. So that's what I meant by non-name brand. But if you want to work for a company and that company doesn't work at your school, I think that networking is the key to your success. For me, like, I would be reaching out to random people on LinkedIn who like either worked at Microsoft, saying like how I was interested in working at Microsoft. And would actually, I would practice writing like blog posts, like these like little articles of like, this is like the products that I see Microsoft in the future. And this is what I think this is what I predict is going to happen based on like how I see the market moving and like all this analysis. So I would actually send these reports to random people and just be like, hey, like, just thought this might be helpful and useful in your job. Because the way you think about networking, it's definitely a two-way street, right? Like, I'm trying to get my foot in the door and show that I'm a smart person and I can work at Microsoft. At the same time, like, you're helping them, right? Like, by doing this research and analysis for them. And so I think that it's always very uncomfortable when I think about networking to be like, I hate the term because it's like almost like I'm asking you to do something, but it becomes more of a conversation. I felt like it was more of a conversation when I had these blog posts because we actually could talk about a common topic that we both were really passionate about. And so I ended up landing at Microsoft specifically through a friend of a friend of a friend, ended up getting referral and going through that process there. I think I'll pause there. Do you want me to answer the next part about the interviews? I think that could be a whole other section. But I think as I was going through this process, I felt like I didn't really know where to even begin. Like, I was just kind of writing about things that I was interested in. And one thing that I really love about Parth's Swipe to Unlock book is that it's like very key, tangible, technical concepts that like is really universally talked about with tech. Like, if you guys haven't read Swipe to Unlock already, like 100% recommend it. I'm not just saying it because Parth is my friend. Like, I genuinely wish that there was a book out there that told me like, what are the technical concepts that I need to know? What should I even be talking about in tech? Like big data, like cloud, those were all buzzwords that I knew, but like, I didn't know how to talk about them. And so, while I feel like I put in the effort and I focused on things I did know, like Microsoft Word and PowerPoint, like I for sure wish like I could even have like deeper intellectual conversations and write about things to get my foot in the door about like cloud, for example. And so that's a little bit about networking and getting your foot in the door. I'll let Parth speak next.
Yeah, I love Christina's strategy of like, essentially, if you can provide value to the people you're networking with, like your response rate just like shoots up exponentially. Like when we actually wrote a book on like blockchain, and like I just cold emailed Brian Armstrong, and I just had like some insights of like on the market of like just my opinions and thoughts, and I got like the response to a cold email from like the CEO of Coinbase, and just I think that's like a really valuable insight of like, if you can like stand out from the pack, like imagine how many emails all of these people are getting every day. Like, how can you kind of deliver value for them? I think that's like a key insight. Like for me, like I think getting into product and like those sort of recruiting roles. I think both Christina and I started on the marketing side. Before Microsoft, I was working with Amazon. I was doing some of their brand ambassador stuff. So like before I got to college, essentially, like I'm sure you guys have heard of like the Prime referral program, like the student referral program where you get like $10 per person you refer. So I actually made like mid 5 figures doing that. And so like Amazon actually flew me out to Seattle to be like, what the hell are you doing? And then they like hired me to lead some of their collegiate marketing. And so from that experience, like essentially like I saw like insights of like, they have this product called Prime Pantry where they charge like $5.99 for shipping, to like send you things that are otherwise like cost prohibitive to ship, like bottled water or like soda or stuff like that. And so like I would use this service as a college student because like Amazon was so much cheaper than like buying like shampoo at the school bookstore. But like they kind of gamified it, but they only took it half the way there, where they showed me what percentage of my pantry box was filled, but like I would just not convert because it's like, oh, I'm like 12% full. It's not worth paying like $6. And so like I pitched like this new product experience of like, how about we kind of gamify filling up this basket? So like it's more fun, it's easier, it's more streamlined. And that like made like a meaningful impact on their like conversion rates and revenue. And that was like one of the core stories of like, even if you're not a PM, like the insights you bring can help shape actual products. And if you can highlight those in interviews, I think that is just as powerful as actual PM experiences in some cases.
Cool. I think there's also a part about the interview piece. I don't know if we want to address that now. Like, how are you acing interviews? I'm reading through comments right now, though, to see if anyone has any questions about the first get your foot in the door. One of the questions was brought up, like, what kind of insights did you write? What did they say back? How do you send articles? So I think that you should be writing about things that you're really passionate about within the tech industry. So for me, like a lot of that was like the consumer products that Microsoft was building at the time. HoloLens was huge, which if no one knows about HoloLens, it's a virtual reality set which you can put on. And so I would talk about like, hey, where do we see the future of like mixed reality even going, like augmented reality and virtual reality? And so I think like when you think about writing these articles, maybe think about it from the lens of like, where do we see the market moving right now? What are some of the current trends? And where do you think that's going to lead in the future? And how does that specific company that you're writing about has the right to win? Like, what is their strong selling point? Where are their weaknesses? And how can they balance that? And I think those are like some awesome writing tips. Like, even if you're not posting these on LinkedIn or anything, like it's a good exercise for you to start practicing as you want to become a PM, because these are things that you do think about even as a PM.
Well, yeah, and thanks for answering that. Yeah, I am back. My internet cut out for a little bit there. But yeah, let's continue talking a little bit about experiences in general. So let's just say like you weren't able to land an internship, right? Like, what else can you do right now to better your chance at getting a product manager role or even like a job in the future?
Yeah, so I think there's like, if you don't have a formal internship or job, like I don't think that really holds you back. Like I think a lot of the most promising candidates like have kind of like side projects that they're passionate about that they can show that they've like kind of cultivated from the ground up. Because like that's essentially the job of a PM, taking something from nothing and iterating to find that product market fit and building something that people want to use. So like I've seen like people do this, like technical people, like I've seen CS majors at Cornell, for instance, like the tool that we had for like signing up for courses, like it was like people would wake up at like 6 a.m. to like register for courses, and like you'd need to like know like exactly what worked and what didn't. So like people made simple tools that let you see like what classes conflicted and what didn't, and like what all you could take, and then like what you're like if you don't get your first choice of class, what you could swap in, sort of like things like that. And those are just like solving small problems, but like the network effects in universities are just so powerful, and I think are often overlooked. So like if you build something for like your school and like a few of your friends use it, then like they share it and vice versa, and like word just like spreads like wildfire, and you can instantly have like 10,000 users of whatever product you just created. And like I think those sort of stories, like when I'm like looking at resumes, those really stand out much more so than like, oh, I interned at like Google. Like if you built something that your whole school uses and perhaps beyond, that's even more powerful in my opinion.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I guess like as just a quick follow-up question, you talked about like building a product. I guess in your perspective, how did you or maybe your friends go about this without knowing code? Like how were you able to find like a team of people to do it with you, get like buy-in on your idea and anything else around that scope?
Yeah, great question. So I use the word product very loosely. So like for me, like I would consider like the books we've written, for instance, as a product. Like I don't think like the products you create need to necessarily be technology products. Like I think like even with physical products, even with like content you create, that's a product. That's like kind of like surveying the market to understand what are these needs that aren't being met by other products in the space. Like when we wrote Swipe to Unlock, we did not expect it. Like our goal was to create like the freakonomics of the tech world of like kind of like why are these like stores offering like free Wi-Fi if it's just gonna like get more people to buy stuff on Amazon instead of in stores. It's like, oh, they're actually tracking like how you're moving through the store to like optimize the physical funnel of how they like display merchandise. It's like that's like super interesting. And so like that's what we thought it would be like more mass market sort of audience. But actually it was like very much so like embraced in the tech space and in the product space, because like there's like a lot of like how like that intuition behind products that went into it. So like we think I think we figured out a need, but like the people that we thought would use it, like we were way off. But like it was still really cool to kind of iterate. Like as we learned who our audience was, we changed like the like tagline of the book like drastically. I think originally it was like the hidden forces, but like something very, very different from like the primer on technology and business strategy. And so like it was really cool to kind of iterate in that regard. I think there's tons of tools like Wix and Squarespace that let you build like mobile websites. There's tools that without coding, you could build a mobile app. And I think like it's also like great to like if you have like really strong like business acumen, to find like friends who like maybe are more technical. Like that's kind of like the relationship I have with my co-authors. Like I brought that business side and they brought that more technical side. And so like the book is like half business and half technology.
Yeah, I think that was like a really good explanation. And do you have anything you want to add to that, Christina?
No, I think like doing side projects is a really great thing. I think even if you're not able to find someone who's technical, I think like Parth was really lucky that he does have friends. Like especially for me, who went from a business school, like I didn't really have too many technical friends. But I think even like helping to like show that proof of concept, or like a low fidelity, like if you yourself like tried to design a website or an app and show like, hey, this is what I would have done, or like this is what the functionality would have looked like. I think that goes a long way too, just because like if I was in an interview talking to you about that, I would want to know more about like the thought process, because so much of the PM interview is just about how you're thinking. And so if you're not able to find a developer, like I would say that's fine. You should still go on and do this project anyways, to really show like, how do you think about product? How would you change things? How do you identify problems and go about fixing them?
Yeah, I totally agree with that sentiment. And yeah, now let's talk a little bit about the differences between like all these like different tech companies that offer product management roles. Are some companies more lenient on technical skills than others? And like I know, for example, like Microsoft calls their PM program management, but it's like a very similar thing to product management. And so we'd love to hear a little bit more about that aspect of the role.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. We're at an interesting point of time right now where historically the product manager role has been very technical. Like back when Parth and I were applying, it was almost like a hardcore requirement. Like they wouldn't even look at your resume if you didn't have a CS degree. And so there were traditional programs out there, like a lot of APM programs exist in which they understand like you're very entry level, and a lot of them don't require you to have technical skills. I think the other like important piece of this too is like while it's like you can go through a program route, the other way you can go, which is the way I ended up going, is like through an internal transfer role. So you start somewhere where you feel like it is a good fit, like a business analyst role, for example, or product marketing role, or brand role even. And you actually like work with PMs and you work with engineering too. And you actually build a lot of respect and trust with them, such that to the point where you're like, hey, I'm thinking about going into product. Like, do you think this would be a good fit? Do you mind if I shadow you? And then making that transition. That could be also a little easier just because people know you better and they understand and respect your work.
Yeah, and anything to add to that, Parth?
No, I think Christina did a great job on that. Like, I think like internal transfers is like a really great way to move into product management. Like if you're really interested in going that route, like I remember at Facebook, I had like a really excellent product specialist who was interested in product. And so like what you'll find at most tech companies is PMs just have like 8 million to 7 gazillion like things on their plate at any given time. And so like if we find somebody who we know is smart and is interested in product, like I have no problem kind of like delegating some of the like, stuff on my plate and like helping them with it. And like kind of like they get to learn, I get to like offload some of the stuff on my plate and like mentor somebody and give back, which is always fun. And so like I think like I've found like excellent like product specialists, product marketing managers who have like just expressed that like interest to me, and then like with that like awareness I can like kind of like find opportunities for them and like give them opportunities to showcase that, because like when you're building a case for like internally transferring to that role, if you can show like, look, I've already kind of unofficially been doing this for like 6 months now, that really helps in that transition process, especially at Facebook.
Yeah,
Cool.
totally.
Yeah.
When I was at Microsoft, that was exactly like what I did. I was working with a PM and I was like, hey, I'm a business analyst here. Like I can analyze all of your data. Like have you taken a look at it? Like I can help give insights if you haven't had time to look at it. And so like he would just send me like these like long like SQL queries where I would like piece it together myself and then provide a dashboard for him to look at and then be like, oh, like based on how users are using their Windows PCs, like perhaps we should target more of like X customers and Y customers. So spot on, Parth, in that like people definitely want to give you a chance to it. But part of it is also you identifying that opportunity, because that's a lot of what you're doing as a PM, right? Is like you're out there, you're trying to figure out, you're identifying problems and going after them.
Like I think a great way to frame that to a PM is like open up to them and be like, what would you do if you had 10 extra hours to work a day? Like, or 10 extra hours a week? Like, where would you be spending your time? Like, what are those things that are falling off right now that like, if you had a bit more bandwidth that you wish you could get to? And like, if those projects, if you can help them hit, like they will make such an amazing case for you to like become a PM if you're doing a good job on those things.
Yeah, I think that's like a really important point. I feel like a lot of people don't realize that, you know, they just have to get their foot in the door at the company first, and then they're able to like, if they like work hard at it and if they like network with the right people, they're able to like make like an internal transition to like whichever role they're like interested in. And then I guess I kind of wanted to loop back to like different programs that various tech companies have. And for like the non-technical folks here in the comments here today, was wondering like, are there any like specific programs that like you know of that don't look for people who, or like maybe like don't require people to know code specifically? And if so, like which ones?
Yeah, so I think there's a few companies that don't have any sort of technical requirements. I know Facebook is like definitely one. We have absolutely no coding questions in our interviews. My understanding is that Uber and LinkedIn also do not have coding questions in the interview process.
Sorry, I was just adding that, and Lyft.
And Lyft. I want to say Zynga also has a APM program that doesn't require technical backgrounds. I think Dropbox. So a lot of companies.
Yeah, I actually think Parth on Product Alliance, there's actually there's a link, yeah. It says it. I remember I sent it out, but you guys should take a look at that. We can link it after this.
Yeah, and
a huge list of like what are all of the best like roles in tech that don't require a business background, whether that's like product marketing manager, PM at certain companies, like biz dev roles, corp dev. I think there's like over 100 positions across like 35 different companies. So we can definitely share that out. those are like the roles that me and Christina were like applying for like when we graduated. And like that was like another thing, right? Like for us, like I think we were kind of early in this trend of like business side students wanting to do more stuff on the tech side. And like there was like no good list of like just jobs and like rotational programs that you could apply to. And so like if you were to just make like tech jobs, like business side jobs, that could be a product that you make. That's literally just like a website with links to all of these roles. I think that would be like a great example of like what is like a product I can create. And like from there, like you could like, I mean, I'm just gonna rant about like where all you can take this. If you get enough traffic, you can like then monetize that, like charge companies to be featured on that. But yeah, like you can find like a very specific small problem that you're having and like create a resource that solves it at scale. And that could be your product experience in lieu of like formal product experience.
Yeah, there we go. So if anybody wants to actually give that idea a shot, do let TechPod know, because I think we would be interested in also helping publicize that. But very cool. I guess let's go into maybe like go back to interview a little bit, because I don't think we like fully got to really talk about that. And like the resources that you could use to really like level up your interview game. And so I guess for the both of you, how did you guys like prepare for your interviews? And then like, are there any like good resources that you guys like often went to? Maybe Product Alliance, but want to let you guys like talk about it.
Yeah, so I think like if you're starting out in product management, like I think like it's really helpful to just start with the basics, reading like Cracking the PM Interview, reading Decode and Conquer. I think those are like the classics. They were published about 10 years ago, so they are a bit dated. But like I think they like in general, like the questions you get have changed a lot, but the types of questions of like estimation or like execution, like those haven't changed. And I think it's like helpful to kind of get a high level overview of like what that interview landscape looks like. So like, as you guys know, we've been working on something called Product Alliance. And so like the motivation behind that was kind of like we get asked a lot of like, what like resources do you guys recommend for like preparing for product interviews? And so like, I don't know about you, Christina, but like I've looked at like a lot of different like services. And like what I just find is like the quality is just so hit or miss of like, for instance, like with Exponent, like some of their videos are excellent and some of those would get like laughed out of the interview room and like they're kind of published right next to each other. So like if you're not like a calibrated interviewer, you're going to struggle to tell which one's which. I mean, you can look at the dislikes on YouTube. That's like a good signal for their videos if you're checking them out. But like, I think like it's very hard to kind of like know what is like a really good response. And so like, I think a lot of almost every provider that I know of is like a team of like 1 or 2 PMs, usually just one, of like their kind of like mock interviewing and giving their opinion, which is usually very centric to whatever companies they've interviewed at or they've conducted interviews for. And so I think the thing that really sets Product Alliance apart is like whenever somebody's being interviewed, there's like, it's not just them, there's 4 other PMs that are watching those interviews. And so like those, like to find the people that we wanted to interview in this course, we essentially like talked to like our mentors who are like directors and senior PMs and like a couple of VPs even. And we're like, hey, like who are those people that like when you interviewed, you just knew that I had to hire this person that you got really excited about? Like at Facebook, we have like this box that you can check of like your level of confidence. And one is like, before you make any decision that is like absolutely like anything besides like a strong hire, you need to give me a call. Like I've only used that decision like once. And so like that person was like one of the first people I reached out to, like when we were like figuring out who we wanted in this course. So like for every instructor, like that is in Product Alliance, like we weeded out 4 to 5 different people to fill that slot for that company to find that person. And then even when those people are giving responses, we have like 5 PMs who are like, or 4 PMs who are watching. And then like we tape over them interviewing to be like, what was really powerful here, or what could have been even more powerful here, to show you like how to get that like 7.5, 8 out of 10 to like an actual 10 out of 10. Christina, is there anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say like definitely like read through the books like as a first like pass to understand like what are the different types of questions that I might be asked. to get a lay of the land. Like, I think when I was first doing product interviews, like, I didn't even know like really what type of questions to really expect. Like, I would go on Glassdoor, obviously, and like look at the questions, but you know, like to what Parth said, like a lot of those are outdated. Like, companies constantly think of new questions and try to test you. And so like, and I didn't even really know like what are the frameworks involved. Like, I think that so much of being a PM is like learning how to think and creating those the right way to think. And so read the books, they'll help you like understand like the types of questions, but then go to Product Alliance, because I think that really helps you understand like the different types of candidates there are out there and how you could like try to mirror like or like, you know, take your time on where to take your time or like how to improve and make it like go from an 8 to a 10 to what Parth said. So in general, like I would say the interviewing process, it just takes a lot of practice and a lot of just like exposure to the questions. So highly recommend you guys do both the reading and the video part.
Yeah. I was also like interviewing for like PM roles, and like videos are so important because reading is like a lot different from actually doing and like saying the things you're supposed to say during an interview and like having structured answers. And yeah, definitely like super helpful. And now for the next like 15 minutes or so, wanted to take some audience questions, and I think questions are starting to roll in here. But let's see. Do you want me to pick questions, or would you guys want to pick questions? Either or.
Either or.
Yeah, I'm up to you. You
Okay.
should. You're the moderator. I feel like you've been reading.
All right. There was one. Let's see. I guess let's start with Nick's question. I'm gonna put it on the screen here. Yeah. So, any program languages you would recommend to non-technical background people to learn? And like, what would be like the most important in your opinion for a PM?
Christina, would you agree it's SQL?
Yeah, I would say SQL. I was gonna say Python. Okay, so I guess like the point of this chat, first of all, is that you don't need to be technical. You don't need to know how to code in order to be a fantastic PM or to break into PM. But if you're like, hey, I just really want to learn, I would say SQL and Python are the two. SQL from a database standpoint, just because oftentimes, like as a PM, sometimes you might be asked like to pull data together. And so it's just good. Or like you'll be like, hey, analyst, can you send me this query? I'm just going to modify it. So it's important that you just understand like, you know, the basic SQL syntax and language. And then I would say the second probably is Python. Like Python in general is a really good language for you, or so I was told, because I don't know how to code, but Python is a great language to learn as a foundation, just because it's the way in which the framework is built, like it can be applied to other languages. And this is what I've been told too. Like I think I took one CS course my second semester senior year of college, and there was Python. So people in the chat might disagree, but I would say those were the two that I was always told.
Same. I was going to say SQL and Python. Like I think like SQL is like very like, even if you're like a non-technical PM, like no matter what company you go to, like it's most likely going to be very data driven. And if you can write your own queries, that's super helpful. And then if you actually want to build something, I think Python is by far like the best language to learn as like a actual like programming language. Like it's extremely versatile. It's super useful for writing like basic scripts. Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's do another question here. Are product portfolios encouraged in the industry? Should new PMs have them? What is your opinion on this, guys?
And so when we say product portfolios, do we mean like a website just showcasing your products, or?
I feel like it might be similar to maybe like a design portfolio, or maybe just like personal websites in general.
Gotcha. So I think like it depends on the person. So like if you've been working mostly at like, if you've worked at like if you had like a Google APM internship and now you're applying for like PM roles, you don't necessarily need a portfolio website. But if you've been working more on side projects and building your own products, that may not have like wide stream recognition like YouTube or some like big name product like that. I think it's super helpful to be able to showcase like what the problem was, like what you built, like, and like that problem that it solved, like how many people used it. I think being able to visually express that is extremely powerful.
Got it. Yeah. And sorry, I don't know if I cut you off there, Christina.
Oh no, I was just gonna say +1. Like, especially like one thing I would really encourage everyone to do is like try going to a hackathon. Like, I think those are really great ways to show product portfolio, like put products in your portfolio. Like, they're kind of like a half-baked idea, but it like technically functionally works. So you can still talk a lot about the ideas behind it and how you were able to create it in just a matter of a couple of days.
Got it. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. Do you think attending I'm assuming like product management bootcamp, would that be beneficial?
So what sort of bootcamp are we talking about? Are we talking about something like product school, or I'm not sure I know PMO.
Yeah, and how are we defining, this is very PM, but like, how are we defining beneficial here? Like, are we talking about like getting your resume into the door? Because I can tell you, like, we look at many resumes at Affirm, but like, I never look at a resume and go like, oh, they went to like product school. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, that's a plus for them. Like, I think if you're doing it for the resume, and we're defining beneficial as doing it for the resume, like, I don't think that's very beneficial. But if you're doing it so that you can like learn more about product and truly understand like the different types of things to be a product manager, like, I think that's fine. But if you're thinking about it in terms of like, this is my way of getting my foot in the door, like, I don't think it's really going to help that much. And I think that actually your time is better spent looking at the videos of seeing how people interview and really practicing those types of questions or doing a side project rather than just like PMs kind of telling you like what they're doing. This is how I think of bootcamp, but like, I think of bootcamp is like PMs kind of just saying what they're doing and like teaching frameworks. And I don't think that there's like a better way to learn how to be a PM than to actually do the job itself and then kind of like study for the interview. But that's my take on it. I think that maybe there might be more boot camps forming now. And so it really depends on what the boot camp is teaching.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think Christina really hit the nail on the head of like, it's like a good way to learn about product management, but it's usually not the most cost-effective way to go about doing it. Like if we're talking about product school, for instance, I think they charge like $7,000 for like a few weeks of like courses.
Yeah,
which is like insane. Like I've never like Christina mentioned, I've never seen like product school on a resume and been like, oh, gotta like give this person an interview. It's like that. It's like the people who've done tangible, like built products, like that get the interviews. I think like in the product alliance courses, like Christina does a really good job of kind of breaking down like concretely, like what are those things, like how, like when she mentions like the article she writes, like how do you kind of go about doing that? How do you get that on the radar of the right people to kind of turn like content you create into like conversations, into interviews? And then we have courses on like how to actually do well in those interviews. But I think boot camps can be like a good immersion experience, but I think like hackathons might be a better way to go about that because like you're actually getting applied experience.
Interesting. Yeah. Let's see. This follow-up question to the SQL answer. Do you guys ever recommend any guides or like workshops or resources to learn SQL? Or maybe like how did you guys pick up SQL?
So I'm still pretty bad at SQL, if I'm being completely honest. Like I picked it up like just kind of on the job. Like I'd Google to figure out what I needed at the time. I don't think I know SQL well enough to actually recommend a resource for it.
Oh, same, Parth. I was hoping you had an answer to this. Like I learned very much so on the job. Like I'm very lucky I had mentors, and this is one of the benefits of working in like a big tech companies. You have a lot of mentors. I want to say I did some stuff on like Khan Academy, but a lot of it was just me copying and pasting into Substack, like the error messagings and like just reading not Substack, Stack Overflow and reading the comments. So sorry, that was a really bad answer, but you don't need to be really good at SQL to get a PM.
Yeah, I love the transparency, and same here. Like I'm still like learning about SQL, and I'm still pretty bad at it as well. Let's see. Another question is, I'm not sure if this is geared towards you, Christina, but it was about marketing. Yeah, like what did you take to your product role from your previous marketing experience? And I think Parth might be able to talk about this too with the Amazon gig, but
yeah, it's a good question. And I feel like Parth actually did a really good job outlining what his Microsoft project was. Like, so I should probably give a little blurb of like my marketing project at Microsoft. So I was tasked to say like, how do we increase monetization in the Xbox console stores? So that's a very broad and open-ended question to which Parth, you know, similar to Parth, like I was like, what? And a lot of this job though was required like doing a lot of market research of like, okay, like what are Xbox or Wii or PS4? What are they doing? What is their user experience looking like? And like mapping out that journey. And then like looking at like user surveys, for example, or doing user interviews and talking to users to say like, hey, this is what we like, this is what we don't like. And so there's a lot of overlap between marketing and product marketing. I would say the difference is like, I would create this deck and I would show like, here's the competitive analysis. Like, here are the insights that we've heard from people. Here are the recommendations. Like at the end of my internship, I was asked to stack rank, like what are the top features that we should think about? And so I was able to do that, right? And so that is very close to being a PM. I would say a PM still talks to customers. They still really think about like what should be prioritized and how to prioritize. And they think about competition, probably just not as deeply as marketing. But I actually use that to like tell my manager, you know, I was like, hey, I really like these kind of experiences, but how do I get it to like the next step? Like I want to bring the torch over to the end and I want to be able to ship the product. I want to like, now that we know what to do next, I want to be able to have that. So those were the kind of questions like, and I would consistently tell my manager about that. If you have a really great manager, they'll be able to try to like look for those types of projects for you to get you more product management experience. And so I would say like try to find those marketing roles. If you're not able to get into product management, try to find those marketing roles that are very similar to PM, which has like, you know, experience talking to customers or has like, you know, prioritization or doing something along the backlog. And even if that's not the case, like have a conversation with your manager to try to shape it in a way that's very product management oriented.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Let's see, maybe like last question here. Maybe one more after this, but this person said, I noticed that a lot of PMs in my company have MBAs. Any advice around being able to show up for that challenge despite not having an MBA?
Yeah, so
any thoughts?
Yeah, so I think there's like some companies like Amazon and Apple come to mind of like that they're like relatively MBA heavy. And that's kind of like the recruiting funnel. But like even at those companies, I've seen people internally transfer into product roles. I definitely don't think that going to business school for just the sake of breaking into product is necessarily like required. Like an MBA is like a very expensive 2-year investment. And so like I think like actionable, like working on side projects and kind of building something on the side will get you a lot further than like having an MBA and just being able to kind of document like, oh, like this is what we built, this is the process we went through, these are the sort of metrics that we hit. And being able to talk to those experiences, I think is like a really good way to pivot into product management.
Cool. All right. I think that's all the time we have for questions. Now I kind of want to give some time to you guys to talk about Product Alliance a little bit more. And also for those of you guys who are still here, we have a very special Tech Pod audience exclusive deal for you guys. So if you guys are interested in leveling up your game in terms of landing in like a PM internship, getting your foot in the door with that PM resume, make sure to hear what Parth and Christina have to say. But yeah, go ahead, Parth. Feel free to talk about Product Alliance a little bit more and all the details.
Yeah, so we have like a very special like discount for you guys for 50 off the full course bundle. So right now, so we have 3 courses. One is for breaking into product. One is about hacking the interview. And then one is like essentially for like the top 22 companies, we go in depth of like their interview process, like what sort of things to expect, what their roadmap looks like, from like their financials to their strategy, like essentially all the things that you'd have to spend like 6-7 hours like Googling to find, like all combined in one place for like all of the top companies. And so these courses are usually like $299 roughly each. But essentially for you guys, it'll be like $335 to get all 3 courses, which are usually like $850 in total. And so we have a code, which I need to dig up. But Christina's actually in the courses, so she can talk a bit more about why it's awesome.
Yeah, I would say like I've seen a lot of the other PMs interview, and like they're very relevant questions. Like I joined Affirm a year ago, and so it was very fresh in my mind, like the types of interview questions. And so like, I think one thing really great about Product Alliance is that they stay up to date on all the different types of questions that companies are asking, and are able to have people do answers to that. As well as like, I think it's just like very beautifully annotated compared to like a lot of the other courses I've seen, and Parth has talked about that as well. But you know, a lot of these videos too, like it was kind of my first time doing the problem. So it's kind of cool to see like them critique me as well. So it kind of, and it also really humanizes the experience. So like, you're not always going to have like a 10 out of 10 interview process. So like, how can you make it better? And what do other people think? So I really like, I enjoy watching, one, hearing about everyone's PM experience, but two, I really enjoy, like in my free time, I like to watch these videos, which I think sounds kind of nerdy, but like they're truly interesting problems. Like, you know, one of them is like, how would you design Spotify for like deaf people? And I was like, wow, that's like something I've never really thought of, but like, is a cool concept to think about and see how other people think about it as well.
One of my favorite videos is essentially we asked a Lyft PM who's now a Facebook PM, like what's a problem? What's like just like a poorly designed product? And she just roasted Quibi. It is like the most like spot on dissection of everything wrong with Quibi months before they went under. Like this was like right when like Quibi launched, is like when we recorded this. Like it wasn't like hindsight bias of like, oh, of course they failed. It was like when like all of like this big money was flowing into Quibi, where it was like still actually kind of bold to say like, of course they're gonna fail because they have like so much funding. And so like there's like a lot of just like interesting like strategy insights in there. I think like the thing that's like most valuable about Product Alliance though is like, I think similar to like college admission, right? Like there's just so many people applying to so few roles or so few positions. Like at like Google and Facebook, we take like 30, 40 like new grads like total between the two companies.
Yeah.
And there's like more than that, like just people like in like a major at like there's probably more CS majors at just Harvard who are interested in those roles than there are like positions. And so like I think like the thing that's like really makes Product Alliance unique is like we have like over a dozen interviewers kind of just like we were like for like months we were like write down little things that people did that stood out, that made them like essentially like what are those things that make a positive impression, like those small things. And so like kind of just revealing all of those little secrets to make you stand out. Like I think one of the big ones that like works extremely well is like you probably haven't thought too much about like when like that like at the end of the interview where you have like 5-10 minutes to ask whatever questions on your mind. Most people are like, oh, like what's the culture like? Like, do you enjoy what you do? Like, what's the day-to-day like? And that is like 90% of the things people ask. Like that is like the best opportunity to stand out in this interview, because like odds are your interviewer is asking every single candidate the same question so they can kind of stack rate the quality of your answers. And the thing is like when you're doing like a super day and like you're interviewing multiple candidates, like unless one person's like truly exceptional, all of these answers kind of just like start to blend together. And so like the things that stand out in your mind are those people who like pitched like a really interesting idea, or like some sort of like oh, like what if Facebook like explored cryptocurrency? Like somebody said that before we were doing it. And that was like really interesting of like, oh, like what do you like? Because like I was like reading like what we were doing internally, and it's like, oh, like what do you think on cryptocurrency? Like how would Facebook like like stand out. Like, and then we just had like a really interesting conversation from somebody who knew nothing about what was going on, like that was happening. And that just positioned this candidate as like, oh, wow, this person's already thinking really strategically into like where our big bets might be. Imagine if they actually had like full, like, purview to everything else that was going on, like the amazing things that they could help come up with. And so it's like little insights like that can help you like really stand out in such ways. Like, obviously, like if you hire like enough coaching sessions, like you can become a good interviewer, but it's still a numbers game. And like these small things are the things that kind of separate you from the other candidates. It's like, I don't want the person who had like a really good response to this question. I want the people who like were pitching novel ideas that could like fundamentally change the trajectory of Facebook as a company.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really great program. And yeah, like our team worked hard to like put together this event for you guys. And so if you guys are interested in any of the courses, it's a limited time offer, and it's really just for like our tech pod audience here. And so just as an example, courses are usually $299, and you can get a single course right now for $249, which is like a $50 difference. And also, for full transparency, if you guys do plan on purchasing one of the courses, try to use the link that we post in the comments. It is an affiliate link, and TechPod does get a small cut from it, but it's to help us keep on running these types of events to help you guys achieve your career goals, and also to support our team, because it's not just me and Joseph running it. It's literally a team of like 23 people behind TechPod. And so it's just these like small things that you guys, like our community, can do to keep on supporting us and like keep on helping us push out the various content each week. But yeah, so make sure to use the code TechPod21X, and as well as the affiliate link. The link above doesn't work. Yes, because I forgot to put a space. My bad. Here you go. Should work now.
And the code's good for the 3-course bundle, so you can get all 3 of our courses for $339 right now instead of $299 each.
Yep. Cool. And that pretty much wraps things up. If you guys haven't already, make sure to copy down the link and the code. And then, yeah, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for coming out. There's still quite a few of you guys in this chat right now, which is crazy. But as always, like, really appreciate the support from everybody. And thank you so much for coming out to these events. You guys make TechPod possible. And of course, thank you to our amazing panelists today, Christina and Parth, for coming out and sharing all their little tidbits of knowledge with us. And link is not working. Interesting. Is it really not working? Let me check. I think it's working. It seems like it's working for me, but
for me,
I can post it again.
Or now it's not working. It's weird.
Interesting. Let me try to post it.
You can put a link in the comments or the bio. Link in the description is what the influencers say, right?
Yes, Christina is an influencer, basically. But yeah, I just posted the link again. Hopefully it works, but make sure to copy that down as well as the code. And yeah, that's it, guys. Have a great night. Thanks for coming out, and we love you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Yes.
Feel free to message us on LinkedIn if you have any other questions. See ya.
See ya.
See you guys.